You can think of evil as a big tree, and it's been said that for every 1,000 that are hacking the branches of evil, there's just one striking the root. Of course, you can't kill a tree by hacking the branches, you'd have to strike the root. So for every 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil, one's striking the root, one's actually getting to the problem. Now, the big problem really is that the ruling elites have a military-industrial complex that steals away all the resources from our culture and puts it into high-tech weapons industry. Now, the reason why that's not the problem people are looking at is because the ruling elite also have a big-ass thing that we call the media. And the media is like a Hydra. Doesn't matter how many heads, Hydra is a mythical character, you cut off one head, another head grows back. Doesn't matter how many heads you cut off in the Hydra, more will just pop back up. That's the media. It's impossible. So this is just one more example of me cutting off one of the Hydra heads of the media. It's analyzing an argument made in the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case, the idea that that couldn't have been George Zimmerman screaming on the 911 tapes. I already talked about other Hydra heads of the media. I talked about the pictures, how they meticulously changed the pictures around to make you think something. And I also talked about how they changed the audio.
There's a real suspicious guy. This guy looks like he's up to no good. He looks black. Dark hoodie, like a gray hoodie, jeans or sweatpants and white tennis shoes. This guy looks like he's up to no good or he's on drugs or something. It's raining and he's just walking around looking about.
Okay, and this guy, is he white, black, or Hispanic?
He looks black.
Did you see what he was wearing?
Yeah, a dark hoodie, like a gray hoodie, and either jeans or sweatpants and white tennis shoes.
I talked about how easy it is to edit audio.
Trayvon Martin case. What's your reaction?
This is a tragedy that has pricked the conscience of our nation. The reality is very clear. This young teenager was gunned down because of how he looked. We as parents, as African American parents especially, we need to gun down young black boys in America immediately. The president should be arrested immediately and gunned down because of the color of his skin.
Those are just Hydra heads. They're going to go away because there's always the next thing. There's always, well, never mind that we were completely lied to about those things, but there's this extra stuff. I mean, there's no end to it. The media is a Hydra, and it is purposed. I mean, the whole reason it exists is not to inform, but to entertain, and part of entertainment is to keep people mad or sad, divided and conquered. That's the purpose of entertainment. Aldous Huxley, the Brave New World author, he was in an interview with Mike Wallace, you can look it up online, and he talked about a world opposite of what George Orwell from 1984 envisioned. George Orwell envisioned a world where we would be destroyed by what we hate and it would be totalitarian. Aldous Huxley envisioned a world where we are controlled and stupefied by what we love. And so what we have is media that is, again, not intended to inform you, but to entertain you right away to your death, at least to your spiritual death and your mental death. And what we have in the Trayvon Martin situation relating to the video, the audio, the pictures that are being depicted is the mental and spiritual death of so many in our culture. They are so stupefied, so easily brought from zero to kill with just a few lies. Now, of course, plenty of people are thinking I'm talking in one direction or the other. Both sides. The Trayvon worshippers and the Trayvon contextualizers who say, no, George Zimmerman is innocent and whatnot. Guess what? You're equally buying into the way that the media is even framing the question to begin with. For example, all the racist clowns of every race, all the racist clowns who insist that Trayvon Martin was a 12-year-old. Oh, he's not. Well, it doesn't matter. He got attacked. Oh, well, he attacked him? Well, it doesn't matter. He has a right to defend himself. There's nothing you can say to all of the racist clowns who insist that Trayvon is the poster child for all this white supremacy. Nothing you can say. However, in the opposite direction, there's nothing you can say to these people who are defending George Zimmerman and pretending not to understand. How could these people be so stupid and misled and just mentally controlled by the media? Well, here's how. Again, the big problem is we have a set of ruling elites who have a military-industrial complex that takes away all the resources that could go towards education, health, etc., and put it towards high-tech weaponry. If we didn't have that, then you wouldn't have so many ignorant as hell people. So that's the real fundamental problem. But again, this is a Hydra head. I mean, people will barely understand that stuff that I just said. And this is just one more Hydra head. But I wanted to get that out of the way and say, don't think because you're on the right side of course being that this whole Trayvon Martin situation is a bunch of puppetry from the media, and by extension the ruling elites, a bunch of puppetry to keep you divided and conquered. Don't think that just if you think that you're necessarily on the right side. The right side is to completely recognize why there are so many stupefied people pretending that this guy, Trayvon Martin, who was beating the hell out of this little Mexican dude, I know he's Peruvian, is that there's no, I can't believe it. Why would they even think that? They've been meticulously stupefied. Everyone in this culture has, just about, for hundreds of years. The ends justifying the means. Television being invented really just for communication, but eventually just used to control and stupefy people and manage them. The ends can only justify the means for so long. Eventually, everyone is so stupid, and that's what's happened. Nevertheless, the Hydra head to cut off today is the idea that this scream could not have been George Zimmerman. Now, the puppets and clowns who insist that Trayvon Martin was a victim, they'll say, no, there was an expert who checked that audio and he said it couldn't have been Zimmerman. Guess what, puppet clowns? Those experts who put together the initial package and meticulously edited the audio to change what Zimmerman said and had him say, for example, this guy looks like he's up to no good. He looks black. And they changed all that audio. They made his face wider. All that stuff. Every single Hydra head that now doesn't matter. Whatever. It formed my initial thought, but never mind that. Those were experts too. See, interestingly enough, as it relates to the audio, the experts say it couldn't have been Zimmerman. Well, guess what? I love voice. It's my number one thing. When I meet somebody, it's the number one thing that I judge them on. Most important quality to me. Most important, by far. You can tell so much about somebody by the qualities in their voice. Now, I wouldn't say I'm an expert like the people who said that couldn't have been Zimmerman, because what experts do is they learn a little something, then they test a little bit, sometimes scientifically, they test a little bit, and then they interpret the results and they tell you what to think. And they say, I'm an expert, so think this. And that's what you're doing, because you're a puppet clown. I'm not an expert. What I am is a person who has studied a lot about voice and can just give you an argument that's pretty reasonable. Now, you are welcome to say, well, that's pretty reasonable, but you're no expert. Go back to sleep, racist clown. Nevertheless, some of the arguments given for why that scream couldn't have been Zimmerman is because it sounds like a kid. Now, this fits right into the idea that it was Trayvon because, of course, he's being portrayed as a kid, when in fact he was 17 years old. Now, of course, you're thinking, well, Zimmerman was 28, so he's less likely than Trayvon to sound like that. But then listen to Zimmerman's voice.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood.
I'll be the one to say it. I mean, plenty black people and then plenty black people don't side with this whole Trayvon Martin cult, but plenty black people who side with the cult would completely keep it real if they weren't so racistly engaged in thinking that Zimmerman is the bad guy in the situation. If they weren't thinking that, they'd recognize Zimmerman is a pussy.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood.
That's it, he's a pussy. He was getting his ass beat probably. He probably sounded like that. Listen to the voice of Zimmerman on the 911 call.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood.
That's a pussy. And then listen to the scream. I'm telling you, you can racistly think what you want and say, that was Trayvon because he was a toddler. He was 17 years old and he was black. Now again, the racist clowns of all stripes, but especially the black people, the racist clowns would recognize that's probably not Trayvon because 17-year-old black guys don't sound like that. See, this is my point about my interest in voice. I'm classically trained as a baritone. I sing, but also, I sing. But also, I've just studied an awful lot about what makes certain qualities of voice. Now, black people in our culture are known to have deeper voices. It has to do with the structure of your body and also your relaxation level. My favorite thing in the world to study is kinesiology and physiology. On another video, I could talk about how it's so interesting, the relaxation and the structure of a voice, making it deep and relaxed. And notice that black people in our culture have a much more deep, relaxed voice. People should be more like that. We should look and say, wow, that is the superior way to be, the deep, relaxed voice. Now that aside, black people in our culture tend to have deeper voices. It is far more likely that a 28-year-old pussy named George Zimmerman sounds like this scream than a 17-year-old, 6'3", black 17-year-old. Now, again, racist clowns, go do something. But I'm telling you, that scream sounds more like the 28-year-old, 5'8" pussy. Think what you want. Now, here's an interesting thing. Trayvon Martin is dead, so we can't. Maybe there's audio of him somewhere, and we could compare his speaking voice to Zimmerman's speaking voice. But we have something that might even be better. There was a 13-year-old black kid who witnessed some of the altercation between Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman. Listen to how this 13-year-old black kid sounds.
It happened like right when the sun goes down completely, so it was really dark and there was no moonlight out because it had just rained and only one porch light was on. I was walking my dog and I heard screaming when I walked outside, so I went to where I heard it, and it was behind about 20 to 25 yards from behind my house, and I looked and I saw someone laying on the ground, and I heard someone yelling for help.
Now compare that to how Zimmerman sounds.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood.
Now compare each voice to the scream.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood.
I looked and I saw someone.
Now again, simply put, it's much more likely that Zimmerman screamed like a bitch like that. Now of course, people are going to say, no, Trayvon was fearing for his life, he sounded like that, impossibly. Think whatever you want, racist clown, but you know that 13-year-old's deep voice is probably more along the lines of what Trayvon sounded like than with Zimmerman. I mean, he probably didn't sound like Zimmerman. He was 17 years old, he was black, and he was 6'3". I'm 6'2", relatively relaxed and a white guy, and my voice sounds way cooler than Zimmerman's. I mean, Zimmerman, it's not just a thing to say against him because then you don't like him. He's a pussy. He probably didn't attack the 6'3" anybody. Well, Trayvon Martin was only 140 pounds. Zimmerman was a pussy, remember? He's weak. I mean, because initially the whole thing came out that he was like 300 pounds and all that stuff, and he looked like this. And then eventually find out, oh wait, he's actually a 5'8" pussy. But you won't apply that to your overall perspective on the case and say, no, he probably didn't approach anyone. He probably, when you heard him getting out of the car, he was probably just kind of keeping his distance, but sort of trying to look and see what's going on. And then, of course, he said that he was told not to follow, and he said, or they don't need him to follow. And he said, okay. But again, that's just a Hydra head. You weren't told that he said okay, so you thought, whoa, he was told, and then he still went. It's a Hydra head. It doesn't matter that you were left out meticulously. They took off from the audio that he said okay. You just, well, it doesn't matter, they lied to me, I still want to think this direction. So you just keep changing the goalposts so that you never have to think and go, you know what, I want to be a racist clown about this situation, But nah, the media is trying to fuck with me. They're trying to keep us divided and conquered so we don't see the real core problem, which is that the military-industrial complex of the ruling elites is siphoning all of our money from education, health, etc. towards high-tech weapons industry. No, it's probably that the media, they're doing the best they can to show us the situation. No, you're a racist clown and you're a puppet. And that's the deal. And that might be it, actually. Yeah, I think that's it. Simply put, neither side that has this strong certainty is striking the root of the problem. You're all hacking the branches. All these people who think, you know what, I'll be a racist clown, it'll work. You know what, I'm justifying all those crazy ass people that are attacking white people now. Because you know what, Trayvon Martin, you can do that garbage shit. You're going to justify martial law. People are going to, you're just playing into the government's hands. And the people on the other side who are thinking, how could they be so stupid? You're the idiots who typically pledge allegiance to a flag that represents this crazy ass centuries of colonialism, etc. Yeah, I'm one of those white guys who was not for your bullshit notions, like you say. Some of the worst stuff these Zimmerman supporters have said is in response to stupid racist clown shit from Trayvon worshippers. The racist clowns will say stuff like, this is what America's like, man, you guys are racist. And these idiots from the Zimmerman side will say, how could you say that? So many hundreds of thousands of white people died in the Civil War to free black people. See, that's a more fundamental problem than any of this clown garbage that's being shown by the media now. The idea that anyone would think that in 1800s in America there was a war fought for the benefit of black people. You are a controlled puppet as well. Anyone who wants to use that talking point, that's not going to help anything. Because any real person knows that in 1865 or whenever, there was not a war fought. The Civil War was not fought for slaves. That's it. So again, neither side. And I'm not doing that to be that guy who you're both wrong now, make up. No, I'm saying you are all puppets and clowns and completely missing the forest for the trees, as they say, and hacking the branches of evil. Again, this was just a Hydra head, the Hydra head of the scream of Zimmerman. But it'll amount to nothing. I'll get a bunch of corny ass racist comments from racist clowns of all stripes, but especially black people saying that I'm afraid of black people, all kinds of garbage ass shit. And I'll get a handful of comments from relatively intelligent people of all stripes and races, of course. And I'll get a whole bunch of people who agree with me just because they don't want to believe that Zimmerman could have possibly done something like that. Because they've been asleep for the last hundreds of years, where our nation was founded on slavery, maintained on slavery. We have modern day slavery. Again, you clowns on both sides. Not good.